So, time for the big reveal. Apart from a couple of little minor details here and there, my Elite is finished. All put back together. Looking really good. This just needs a good tune up and get it sounding great again. Hey folks, so today we're going to do a bit of a kit rundown. So there's a lot of consensus at the moment with particularly drumming groups online, groups on Facebook, things like that, where some people have this idea that if you have multiple drums then you must be some kind of multi-millionaire, and that's absolute rubbish, obviously. So we're going to start, I'm going to start off talking you through my first kit and the history behind it, and yeah, how I came to get a lot of the drums that I've got. Okay, so my drumming story starts here. This was my first ever snare drum. This is a vintage John Gray 500 series. This has been, well, this was given to my brothers when I was about 2 years old, and it's been through a hell of a lot over the years. Over here, you see that? We have a John Gray 16-inch floor tom. Okay, these were the first two drums that I ever got. These belong to my uncle. He was a drummer with a band called The Shakes. And these were just a couple of old drums that he had, so he gave them to my brothers to play with. Got a long story short, my brothers ruined them, and years later when I started to learn to play the drums, I decided to dig them out and fix them up. At that point I was drumming on cardboard boxes and plastic buckets, whatever I could lay my hands on really. So we dug this one out of the shed. Its head was missing, it was covered in cobwebs, and it was a little bit damp, but other than that, wasn't too bad. It had been kept in dry storage. The snare drum was half buried at the bottom of the garden. My older brother had put a garden fork through it, through both heads, and it was just left buried for 5 years. So we take a look underneath. This one's currently not working properly. Its snare wires need fixing. It needs a new strainer. But you can see all the damage and the pitting to the wood. Now, I've restored that to various degrees over the years. I first put this thing back together when I was about 11, 12 years old. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I cleaned it all up to the best of my ability and put it back together. Over the years, I've invested in slightly better gear for it. So, you know, a new bottom hoop. The old one was all completely rusted, and I spray painted it gold. Originally, this used to be black. And when I sanded it down, I found that it had the gold pearl finish underneath. Well, actually, what I found was white. Underneath there's white, and then it kind of fades into gold, which is interesting. And yeah, I still use this snare drum now. You know, it's missing 2 of its tension rods, so it should have 6. It's only got 4 on it. 2 of them are long gone, and I have no idea where they disappeared to. But yeah, years later, I then bought this one, which is exactly the same snare drum, but this is how it's supposed to look. This was a bargain on eBay. I was looking for parts, and then when I got this, it was too good to strip down for parts. So I now have 2 500 series snare drums. So next we'll move on to the toms. The floor tom, as I've already said, that was the first drum that I ever got. Now, originally my first kit, as it was set up, consisted of this snare drum, this floor tom, and I saved up and bought myself this bass drum. Now this cost me £30 second hand, thanks to my good friend Mr. John Mallinson, who used to run the drum department at Spectre Sound in Bingley. And this is actually a 1980s Tama Swingstar bass drum. It came with pearl heads on it. As you can see, it's still got the the same pearl RC batter head. The original rims, original lugs, all of it. Now we'll come round to the front in a minute. So yeah, that was my kit. Tama Swing Star bass, John Gray piccolo snare drum and floor tom, and I had a factory second Horner Lacrosse 13-inch tom, which I think I paid 20 quid for it, and it sounded bloody awful. So, but I had that for a few years. I still technically have it now, actually. That was cut down to make my electric snare drum over there. The other half of it went to my youngest son for the drum kit that we're building for him. So we'll come round to the front, and this is where it gets interesting. I was given these two toms years later, but these also belong to my Uncle Jon. Now they're both dressed up with Elite hardware. However, the 14 is an Elite. As you can see, that's mahogany. The 13 is actually an Olympic. So as you can see, that's birch in there. However, when it came to restoring these, I had a spare set of Elite lugs from my 18-inch that's on my big kit there, because that was converted to a concert tom. So the spare lugs I put onto this one so it matched with that one. So, you know, I call this an Elite. It's technically it's not, but you know. So as you can see from the front of the bass drum, the front hoop from my Swing Star and the res head had been removed while I was doing some work on it. They got left in a cupboard when we moved house and never came with us. So unfortunately they are long gone. But it does mean that I've been able to restore this, because a lot of the lugs were snapped. So all the decent ones that were still intact went on the back, so that I could obviously still play it, and for years this front end was open. I've now fitted it with APK lugs, which is basically what the Elite became, so matching speedboat lugs, as you can see. New black hoop and a new res head. As you can see, it's been readorned there with the Shakes logo, so it's sort of authentic. Not quite how it looked back in the day, but it's certainly looking a lot more neat and uniform and how it should look, really. So now, back in the day, the way that my Uncle Jon would have had this set up was he would have had it set up like a resonator or Soundwave kit. So this 13 actually had double lugs down there, and it had a head at the bottom but with a hole cut into the res head, so you could fit a mic in there. That was always an Elite, and then everything else all set up around it. Now, the 12 that we've got here, this is actually a little edition of my own. That's a 1960s Olympic 12-inch tom that I've just happened to come across on eBay just browsing one day, and that cost me £7.50. So I figured for that, yeah, I'll buy it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's a bargain. We'll find something to do with it. As it turns out, when it's been rewrapped and what have you, it fits perfectly on this kit. Now at the moment when I'm actually playing this kit, I tend to use my Cabria snare with it these days. That was a freebie that came with my second kit, and I'll go into more detail about that in another video. But yeah, that is my Elite, or my Uncle Jon's kit, or the Shakes kit as we call it. And yeah, it's progressed a lot over the years. Now when I was a teenager, I tried to change the look of this kit and made an awful bloody mess of it, really. The first thing that I tried to do was spray it Dayglow yellow so it looked like Tommy Cunningham's kit from Wet 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 that he used on the all-around down in the crowd tour, and I had no idea how to spray paint back then, so I made an absolute mess of it. Now, as you can see, because it's got the original base hoop still, there is still some of that Dayglow paint on there, but that's about all that's left of it now. The rest of it's all been cleaned off and polished up, mostly. There might be a few little bits that I've still get around to, but I think I've got most of it. Admittedly, that does look great when the UV's on it. It does actually look pretty cool. I then later attempted my first vinyl wrap with this weird green marbleized stuff that you can see in the picture, and that again looked a little bit weird, but I kept that for quite a few years until its most recent restoration. But yeah, that is, at its core, what was my first drum kit. So, yeah, I've got to admit, I do love the way that this bass drum works. So from the front, that is a Premier Elite. From the back, it's still my Tama Swingstar, my original Swingstar bass, and it still sounds great. I absolutely love it. I've recently just put a lot of work into restoring this kit, cleaned up all the chrome and the bright work, recoated it all, vinyl wrapped it all black, and yeah, it looks and sounds great now. Really happy with it.
Watch the skies, read all the instructions with bright blue eyes. Whatever WASPs, our American sons, we know how to clean our teeth and how to strip down a gun. We're the 53rd states of America. We're the 53rd states of America.
So there you have it, that's my Elite kit. In the next video, we're going to be looking at this beast. This is my main kit. That is my Phil Collins replica. So stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.
The stone angel smiled down, mocking the grief she lay down. Golden flowers as a mark of indifference. She read the epitaph for the 100th time. A quote from Mr. Shelley, a personal favorite of mine. She almost cared once. She almost cared enough to call him sweetheart.